In this video, we're going to talk about how you can get invited to every single party ever. You'll never be left out again. How? Let's get this party started and find out. Let's be honest, nobody ever likes to be the person left out. One time, I moved away from a church that I used to work at. And at this church, I did retreats every single fall. With another friend of mine down the road, he worked at a church. And so together, our two churches would come together. And we went on this fall retreat. And so before I moved, I was one of the ones who went on the retreat, helped plan it, speak, do all the things. And so every single fall, we went to a camp called Camp Tecumseh in Brookston, Indiana. And we called the retreat the Recharge Retreat. And it was awesome. And so I leave that church, I move on to another one, and that same weekend rolls around in the same place. And because I follow both my old church and my buddy's church on Instagram, I see that they're both on a retreat. And I was like, it's interesting. Both that church and this church are both on a retreat together. But on the same weekend. Well, that's interesting. Wait, in Brookston, Indiana? Hold on. They're together? And what I began to notice was that these two churches came together, and instead of calling it the Recharge Retreat, they called it the Lifeline Retreat or something like that. I don't remember. But I felt so left out. There I was, sitting at home, thinking, that used to be me. I used to be the one there. And now I'm home with my kids, with my new church, and the vibes aren't there. And I felt incredibly left out. When it comes to a party, I often feel like insiders, and there are outsiders. And that's what we're going to see today. One of Jesus' friends, a guy named Matthew, recorded this story out of the life of Jesus. And here's what it says. It says, later, Matthew invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, and along with many tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. That comes out of Matthew chapter 9, verse 10. Tax collectors back in Jesus' day were considered to be some of the most corrupt and frustrating people around. These aren't the kind of people that anyone thought Jesus would be like sitting down, sharing a meal with. And so here's what I want to know. Comment below, or if you're watching this live in the room at the table around you, I want to ask you this question. Does it surprise you to know that Jesus shared a meal with people that are considered out in their ancient society? Why or why not? Take a minute. So at the time of Jesus, there was a group of religious leaders. They were called the Pharisees. And they had a real problem with this dinner party that we see Jesus at. So it says, when the Pharisees saw this, the fact that Jesus was there with the sinners and the outcasts, they said, why does your teacher eat with such scum? They asked Jesus' disciples this question. You see, the Pharisees were purposefully keeping others on the outside. They were judging them and questioning Jesus and his friends for not keeping them on the outside. Check out what Jesus said in response to them. I love it. He says, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. So then he added, now go and learn the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. See, Jesus came to care for those who needed him the most. He came to show grace and love and mercy to the sinners, the tax collectors, and anyone else who has ever been cast out of a group. So what does it look like to show mercy in today's world? Well, for starters, it's letting people know that they belong, that they can have a seat at your table. You know, when you think about your life, right? Like, I want you to be honest. You probably hang out with people that you're most comfortable with. Your table might look like a table full of athletes, or your table might be a table full of kids in theater, or your table might be a table full of just kids in your neighborhood that you hang out with. Here's my question. Since your table is often very similar, what if rather than having everybody with the same label sitting at all of your seats of your table, what if you chose to mix it up a little bit? You have one with this label, one with that label, one with this label. What would that look like? Like, think about it. What if you chose to invite people who come from significantly different socioeconomic backgrounds? What would it look like if you chose to invite people who are into different shows or forms of entertainment? You know, like kids who are maybe into anime or The Bachelorette or the Kardashians. What if you asked someone who is a gamer? Because you typically despise gamers and you're an athlete. Or maybe, what if you're a Christian and you tend to avoid people who believe differently than you? What if you invited someone with a different faith system to your table? Remember this, a party starter knows that everyone is invited. So how do you get invited to every single party? That's how we let off the video, right? Be like Jesus. Be the person willing to invite somebody new to your table. You see, we want this church and Cross Creek students to be a student ministry where it's a safe place, where you can show up, be just as you are, find yourself surrounded by people who want to make sure and know that you are invited to the party. So I want you to ask this question and kick it around even a little bit more in your Connect group. Who's one person that I want to make sure feels in or invited to the party with me this week?